anybody from the team, do you guys mind hopping on and just telling us a little bit about who you are and what your role is within your organization?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Yeah, my name is Braden Mulvey. I'm part of the 309th Electronics Maintenance Group. So we do the diagnostics and repair of various avionics equipment for anything the Air Force flies. I think one of the issues we have, and one of the problems the Air Force has as a whole, is kind of the tyranny of distance, as it were. Great power competition, the newer kind of Genesis efforts that are being pushed of hub and spoke ideas. One of the issues we have is if an aircraft is deployed somewhere, be it, Kadena Air Base, something like that, if they have an angle of attack indicator that needs diagnosed and repaired, they have to ship it all the way back to Ogden, Utah, to be repaired, diagnosed, and put back together, and then put back in service. That back and forth can be 4 to 8 weeks worth of time, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in shipping costs alone to make that back and forth. So we saw a need for a ruggedized portable diagnostics test station that we could forward deploy at these locations and support that depot level repair, not just flight line repair, but full depot avionics repair at the aircraft itself, and save those 4 to 8 weeks of shipping time. So it's kind of where we kind of saw the idea and kind of kicked off and got together to see if that's something we could resolve together.
That's actually really cool because being an aircraft maintainer by trade, I feel like there's a lot of initiatives out there that are trying to get those repairs done closer to the field level as well. And I think the more that we can do that, the more effective we are going to be overall. So I guess just talking a little bit to like your innovation process, right? Like how did you, I guess, come up with this idea? Was it something you dreamt about? Was it that you were just at work one day and was like, wow, we really could do this and build this ruggedized tester and have airmen do it in the field? Or I guess, how did you come up with this idea?
So it was, yeah, that's a good question. So it was kind of mostly driven by, like I say, there are a lot of initiatives being driven, and the writings on the wall of we need to be better postured to do this depot level repair if we want to keep the readiness level of our fleet up. A lot of our test equipment we operate here at the depot is very large, very obsolete, and not mobile in any way. It's not agile. We can't deploy them forward locations, anything like that. So we saw the need coming from this, GENIS, the Global Enterprise Network for Universal Sustainment Initiatives being driven by AFSC, of, hey, we need to be more agile in our repair. We need to increase our readiness level out into theater, in the various theaters to which we're engaged. So we saw the need there, and we saw that our current testing platform available to us was inadequate to fill those needs. So EMXG has gotten together with the Automatic Test Systems Program Office based out of Warner Robins, Georgia, and kind of collaborated together, say, okay, what can we do to take our current supported lifecycle managed big testers and find a much more portable, ruggedized, deployable version of, try to mimic as much of that capability as we can in a smaller form factor that theoretically either an airman or somebody from EMXG would go and be deployed out on the flight line, but doing depot level repairs. So we kind of saw, the initiatives being driven of these, mission type orders of to move forth. And we needed something to fulfill that mission.
Yeah, that's really cool. Depots in general, right? I've found have been extremely innovative, and I think it sometimes has a hard time getting out to understand what exactly they're doing, right? To the field members in particular, that is really just trying to change the way in which we go about doing things. And I think this is a really cool opportunity to showcase a lot of that. So have you guys by chance like calculated the return on investment or anything like that for this? Like how much is it to ship this component back and forth? or how much downtime, anything like that?
Yeah, so we've done some back of the napkin math. Again, we're going to dig deeper and see if we can get some more accurate pricing. But at a quick and dirty, if we utilize, FedEx as an example, which is similar, if we had to ship it, by FedEx every time, we're in the range of $700,000 a year in savings. That if we could eliminate those shipping costs entirely and do it there in person, so anywhere in that $500,000-$700,000 range in price, which is great. The other thing is anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks in shipping time where nobody's touching it. We're just waiting for transit would be eliminated. And then the last benefit and the largest is really a readiness benefit by eliminating the shipping time and reducing the costs. We can get more aircraft in the air and or keep them ready to perform a mission if they needed to. That one's slightly harder to quantify, but is a larger benefit of the real readiness benefit to the warfighter is really what we're aiming and striving for.
Yeah, and I think, like, speaking from a maintainer background, right? Like, the qualitative piece is nothing was more frustrating to me when I was working on aircraft when I did not have a part available or I didn't have like a time frame, right? When you're waiting on those MyCaps. And I think the quicker that we can get those back into the hands of airmen on the flight line so that they can install them on the aircraft and fix that aircraft, the the more um the more purpose that they feel within their AFSC, which is really awesome. So what are some of the challenges that you've experienced thus far? It sounds like it's still a relatively new concept, right? But have you experienced any challenges or barriers in this process at all yet?
Yeah, certainly. One of the challenges distinctly with the depots is um, we are technically not allowed to purchase or do research and development. That RD, T&E money is not available when you're utilizing capital working funds, um, or working capital funds, I should say. That's not allowed in the regs to do stuff like that. So building a new tester and a new capability and being innovative is a little bit trickier with the to term the phrase, colors of money we have available to us. So that is one roadblock we certainly face. Is one the um, development of a new and exciting technology sometimes is tricky to fund at a depot level. The other side to that is then the long-term sustainment. Oftentimes, the sustainment of these test stands is not ever brought into the perspective of the supply chain management groups. Oftentimes, test equipment gets overlooked on the support funding. So we're working both fronts to find other avenues for one, the development of this test station, and then two, to find other potential avenues to maintain the sustainment of this piece of test equipment long term, and keeping it an enterprise-wide solution, not just one local EMXG. So yeah, we have had some roadblocks. We're working on that, and I hope with this test rack, competition is one, let people be aware of those roadblocks, and two, if there's funding available to help us overcome some of those roadblocks, then even better as well.
The test rack team's very, very good at overcoming roadblocks. I've seen it on many occasions, and I think you're definitely within good hands. So, specifically with like collaboration and support, right? Like, are you looking for other collaborators to be a part of this team, or um, are you looking for feedback? How could an airman get involved with you guys?
I think the biggest thing is I think we have a great team based out of Warner Robins, Georgia, the software integration lab that builds and designs the hardware and software. We have a great team as far as the technology goes. The biggest thing we need on a front lines is obviously I have a lot of use cases internally where I plan to utilize this piece of test equipment. Selfishly, I'm going to make great use of it and provide readiness to the Air Force. But what other options are there in the Air Force? What other needs? I was talking to B-52 program office the other day. They had a component. They're like, hey, I always have issues with these. I wish I could just test it right here, right now, rather than shipping it to you guys and you guys telling me it's totally good and it's something else. some of those times it's, just the conversation with other forward operating locations of, what issues are you having that a depot level repair or testing capability and diagnostic capability could provide for your organization. So that's kind of the collaboration we would be looking for, is to roll this out to an enterprise level, and keeping it not EMXG specific is where else can this tester be used in the whole Air Force.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So if there's anybody listening to this recording, please reach out to Mr. Braden and see how you can start to collaborate with him and then provide input as well. That's cool. So what are some of like your future goals, like your roadmap, so to speak, of where you really want to take this? I know you talked about funding, specifically color of money. That's one thing that I think that the SIF marketplace will be able to potentially help out with as well. If you had to say one thing to a senior leader right now that could advocate for you, I guess, what would that be?
One thing I would say is we need additional funding support when it comes to avionics test equipment. Where that money comes from, I'm not sure, but oftentimes that funding is overlooked. To execute this, 309th EMXG operates a forward location at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan, the Support Center Pacific. The Pacific is a real hot item right now. That is where we would start developing this. The first one we would purchase would inevitably end up getting deployed out there for preliminary testing and trial runs, and then expanded outwards from there wherever the Air Force needs it. But from a senior leadership level of finding ways for policy changes or development that we can support test equipment more thoroughly and deeply without having to kind of jump through hoops, or no offense to anybody here, but without having to go through competitions to try to find money to find ways to fund stuff like this, when it is a huge need for the Air Force as a whole.
I think that's definitely something that should be socialized a lot more as well. Is yes, the competitions are great, right? Like the Aether Sprint, Spark Tank, and things of that nature, especially for advocacy. But how can we, I guess, reduce that barrier to be able to make it where these things happen a lot quicker? Last question, right? Like, what really inspired you to take this on, like internally to you, right? Is there is it
Yeah,
a pain that you felt in a previous life, or I mean, I guess like what inspired you?
no, absolutely. So I think it's kind of a pain we're experiencing now. Is that currently at 39 EMXG, we have a lot of old, antiquated, and outdated pieces of test equipment. And I came from a background in robotics and a small startup company doing new and cutting edge and leading edge equipment and robotic exoskeletons and you name it. And then picked up a job here at 39 EMXG, and then I've got test equipment that still uses punch cards to operate rather than software. So it was quite a large step back, and realizing how big the problem was, not just for us, but for the Air Force as a whole. And with my kind of background in, robotics and innovation, looking and saying, hey, we can do something about this. This is a problem we can tackle and we need to tackle for the defense of our nation. And selfishly, it's kind of a fun project to work on, developing something new and exciting for the Air Force, getting a chance to kind of reach out a little bit further rather than using old amps and tubes. Doing something new and novel is always a fun project from an engineering perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I think that there's a lot of folks just like you out in the Air Force, right, that are sitting around and watching punch cards, right? And they're like, there's got to be some better way for us to be able to do this, to modernize our force a little bit more so that we can be more effective. Um, all right, with that, I would really like to open it up to the floor for anybody that has any questions or comments. Yeah.
Question for you from a maintainer's perspective is we have to deal with parts a lot of times that are constrained in the supply system. Do you foresee this, your VDATS that can be deployed out to forward locations, being able to help with those kind of issues of constrained parts? Over.
I think certainly to a degree. There are quite a few times where components get shipped back to my facility for repair and diagnosis, and when we crack them open, they are actually totally okay. That something's either misdiagnosed or um, shouldn't have been sent in from the field and was taken off the airplane when actually it was something else that was causing the issue. So oftentimes, leaving those on the airplane and doing that diagnosis there keeps parts on the plane longer where that doesn't need to be pulled off. And then two, like I say, waiting and reducing that shipping time, you can get parts back into planes quicker. So you can have that health of the shelf be much more stable and secure rather than like we talk my caps. If there's a mission capable aircraft, ship the tester either to its location or wherever it needs to be, do that repair right then and there, and save you time of waiting parts, weeks and weeks waiting for some whatever it is instrumentation to get delivered from supply chain back to the flight crew. So I think it would certainly affect and impact that. To some degree, it's not going to resolve issues with nuts and bolts and washers, but by shipping less components back to the depot, I think it would provide an increase in readiness and availability of those parts.
Thank you all for attending today's fireside chat. I think this is really awesome. It adds advocacy, awareness, and without all of you being a part of this, it really makes it very difficult for airmen and individuals to really scale their innovation efforts and their projects and their ideas. But allowing this platform to exist then really gets the word out and flattens the hierarchy within the Air Force, which is going to make us all more successful in the end.